Welcome to the Clock Hour. This is your host, Marv Kennel. I think I'm doing something a little different. We're doing something different today. I got a very special guest I had on my show before, Mr. Bob. We're going to call him Mr. Bob for now because I'm not good at pronouncing his last name anyway. But, Bob, how have you been, man? I ain't talked to you in a minute. How have you been?
I'm doing real well, my friend.
Yeah.
And I appreciate coming back on. How are you doing?
I'm good. I always try to bring people back on in case we miss something. I didn't let you get a chance to get it out there and so forth. I've been all right. I've been in the schools, subbing in the schools, something to do after you retire from the corrections and so forth. But it's very interesting, man. Very
So
interesting.
let me ask you this:
Uh-huh.
Who do you find more difficult, us inmates or the students?
The students. It depends on the grade level. I'm gonna say, I would say maybe third grade to fifth grade, in grammar schools.
So that's like being at a USP.
No, you know what? I've never been to USP, man. I worked close to Max in the South, and working up here at Danbury, that was a low. I I like the low because it was a lot more interaction. I've been to a medium,
Yeah,
seen a medium, but the low where I was at, it was women at first, man. You can't beat that, man. I'm not gonna make life harder for myself and go to a max. I don't want no parts of that.
listen. I hear you. I started out, like we had spoken before. I started out in a supermax out in Utah for
Really?
pretrial, and was in solitary confinement for almost 2 years.
Wow.
And I spent 2 weeks in a medium, and then I ended up in Danbury Low, and I ended my time at a camp in New Jersey. So I got a good taste of the entire menu, I guess.
Yeah, you really did. Because let
Yeah,
me
and
ask you a question. Because they're trying to phase out that solitary confinement thing, man. Is that inhumane treatment in your
well,
in your
you
opinion?
know, let me tell you, for me, I thought I was going crazy. Um, at one point, there were these 3 ants that were in my cell, and I had a styrofoam cup, and I captured them. And towards the end of my time in there, I swore I could tell the 3 ants apart. So I knew I was losing it.
You said ants.
Yeah, ant, like insect,
Right,
ANT.
right.
So I knew I was on the brink of losing it.
So,
It was really hard. And I'm someone who has been through a lot in my life anyways,
right.
and thought I was prepared for that.
Uh-huh.
But, only seeing a pair of hands 3 times a day, and that's like your only human interaction when that cup port would pop open. It was really something different. It was a very difficult situation, and
Right.
the supermax that I was in while I was there, 3 people actually took their lives.
I can imagine.
So yeah,
That's
so it was tough.
like that Colorado one that's in the ground, really. It looked like
Right?
they
Yeah.
dug out a hole and built an institution in there. That's got to be crazy. You know, me myself, I wouldn't want to work in there because you figure that you're doing a part of that time with those people. And I know how acted just from working in that environment when I would have to turn certain mechanisms off mentally when I hit the parking lot.
And truthfully, that's one of the things that I had a good grasp on because I had been on the law enforcement side with the FBI before I was incarcerated.
Right.
I knew how hard it was to be a corrections officer. Like I understood
Right.
that you guys were doing the time with us.
Right.
And it was harder because of that switch you had to hit in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And if you didn't hit that switch, that's why you had like a 78% divorce rate.
Right.
It's a tough thing to turn on and off every 24 hours.
Yeah. And you're right. And after being there for so long, you hear and know that different things that has happened, and I don't speak on them, but I've seen staff get walked out of there, and knock
Right.
on wood that I made it to the finish line.
And honestly, when you think about it, Mark, the justice system pay scale is kind of upside down because as an FBI agent, I was safe because if I was going to make an arrest, I could plan enough ahead where the danger factor would be so low, it wasn't really a concern. Whereas when you're a CO, you never know when someone's going to pop off.
Right.
And you got to be 24/7, your head on a swivel.
Right.
And yet, when you look at the pay scale, the FBI is way up top, and Bureau of Prisons is kind of getting towards the bottom. And it made no sense to me because as far as like danger goes,
right,
even when I was at a camp, we had a pregnant CO, and she was the only one at the camp.
Really?
And there was an inmate that had a seizure. She had to respond to it, and all of a sudden, there were 140 inmates surrounding her as she was on her knees trying to help a guy.
Wow.
And in my head, I was like, "Oh, this is not a good situation."
Right.
So when you look at how dangerous it could be for a CO, they should be making more money than any other law enforcement agency.
And you know what's crazy? I worked in Georgia, and you know what they were giving us? This was close to max. It was a prison hospital in Augusta. So they were giving us $20,000 a year, like McDonald money.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And the risk factor, I'm a $175, man. These dudes is cornbread fed, biscuit eating,
Right.
6'2",
Right.
6'3", 200 and plus, so you're there. Even the smallest one is still bigger than you. So the risk factor down there, you had to know what you're doing.
Right, and they don't come rolling up at you alone.
No.
They come rolling up at you in groups.
Right.
So, it doesn't matter how big the CO is. If there's 5 inmates, it ain't gonna matter.
Quick story. There was a youth facility in Georgia called Lee Erringdale. So you had on the average 50 inmates to a dorm, right? They send 11 officers in there with nightsticks. The math wasn't mathing. People quit. People quit. I mean, myself, I wouldn't have went in there. that just wasn't. After you make the announcement, and then you got to take different precautions. You don't send
Right.
11 staff members, COs, in a dorm of 50 young dudes. These are young boys. Lee Arringdale was a young boy spot. It's a women's spot now, but you don't send 11 staff members in there with nightsticks. That was mismanagement right there. I would have sued the state. But they don't let you. You can't. There's no unions or nothing down there, so you can't do nothing about it. So they took their beat, and then some people quit.
Oh, I can imagine. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
look,
crazy.
you don't want to go to work. You don't want to leave your house and worry about whether or not you're going to make it home at night.
Right. But you know what? I was telling somebody because I did have a heart attack about a year or two ago, and you operate on a certain level of stress because you know what they're doing for some of the state clients, inmates up here. I want to be politically correct. They're giving them marijuana cards after they get out.
Oh,
So
to help them with like PTSD.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you look at a system and you start taking it apart in your head, it really doesn't make any sense. But then again, it does. You know what I mean?
It's one of those situations where until somebody can come up with a brilliant idea as an alternative, you're like you're driving that 79 Pontiac that you had in high school, and you just keep fixing it little by little, hoping that you'll make it to the prom.
Right.
And it's one of those things where until somebody comes in with like a DeLorean,
Uh-huh.
you're going to be driving that clunker and just putting duct tape here, a screw there.
Right.
And that's the way our system goes.
Right.
Nobody sits down and says, all right, well, let's fix it like flat out so that it's good to go from here on in. They
Right.
just patchwork it,
Yeah.
and
Because I'm sure you've been overseas and you hear about some of the other systems like over in what is that Norway and stuff like that. Their system is different. Then you
you don't have to tell me.
you get to
I
the to the draconian.
I had
Go ahead.
I had an experience where I was doing something with Scotland Yard,
Okay.
and their incarcerated people get apartments. They're guaranteed a job. They get full medical benefits while they're incarcerated. Like they're quote unquote incarcerated, but they're like walking around, in society. Like I don't want to
Right.
use, for lack of a better word, normal, like
Right.
a normal person, and they get a better opportunity to assimilate back into society because they don't even really take them out.
Right. I used to go to Scotland a lot when I was in the military, in the Navy. So you didn't see those cops with guns. I didn't see them.
No.
No.
Yeah.
And it was effective because they didn't play. They played no games. If they came, they played no games. And you watch them. I watched them do this girl and toss her into that little van thing that they drive, and they were out. And one guy, he told me
Yeah.
they put him in the cell butt naked. He said, I was cold. I said, gee, I bet you wouldn't do that again. He said, nah. So it's always interesting to hear and learn about different places, and they say it doesn't work, but it really does. Their crime rates are low. They don't have.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely do not have a situation like we do here,
Right.
and they don't have any recidivism. The
Right.
recidivism rate is like so low. It makes the United States look pathetic.
Yes, you're right.
So
Because I asked one time, I said, everybody talks about the drugs coming in, and I said, nobody speaks about the demand. The demand in this
Right,
country is very high. That's why the
right.
drugs keep coming in. And,
No, listen, I used to, when I got to the camp,
uh-huh,
which was mostly, white collar guys,
right.
and honestly, the important word there is white.
Uh-huh.
These guys would try to, talk badly about like the low level young drug dealers that were at the camp. And,
Right.
I sat down with them once and I said, you guys are way worse than a drug dealer. And, because they had that white privilege, they automatically argued with me. And I explained to them, I said, look, someone who's dealing drugs fills a demand.
Yes.
And it's like supply and demand.
Right.
It's like a business transaction. Whereas, grandma and grandpa wake up one morning and they want to pay for their grandkids' college, and you white collar guys have sucked their account dry. And, you have the right, you think you have the nerve to sit here and criticize these young men that are doing these street drug deals, and you're stealing people's retirement funds and destroying families for generations.
Right.
And you get 18 months and they're getting 18 years.
Right.
And, it's ridiculous.
And
And the reason is,
right.
who do these white collar guys know? Who do they hang around? Well, they hang around country club guys that end up being politicians or end up being, high level businessmen that are all connected.
Right.
And it's like the good old boys club. They just
Right.
help each other.
Because you know what, I would hear people talking about it, and I even went to Amsterdam. I said, and I hung out with locals. They said, we don't bother with that. That's for tourists. Those are the
Right.
tourists are the ones that's going over there getting the marijuana and the weed and stuff like that, the special weeds and stuff like that over in that corner of town. So he was like,
Right.
we ain't interested in that. He told me. They told me. I hung out with them. They was like, that don't interest us. Just like the prostitution set up over there. That's for tourists. Tourists are the ones spending most of that money over there. So
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
I agree. Like, you're not gonna crap where you eat,
Right, right,
and they're not involved in all that. They set it up because they know they're gonna make money, and people go there just to do that. But none of the locals get involved in any of that.
no, because you know what? I was with a bunch of locals and they took me out. I hung out. I was really up there for about 10 days, and I went to France and the Eiffel Tower, and then came back and stayed there a couple more days and left from up there. But it was interesting to know what they were doing and
Right.
how it works. See, we're not. They throw smoke screens in front of us, so that way we're sitting there arguing about the wrong stuff when we should be paying attention to the other stuff. You take out the demand, and then there's nobody buying it.
Yeah, 100%. I 100% agree with you.
Right.
Everything in our system, I learned the hard way,
Right.
is backwards. When I
Right.
was at the low and we were taking programs, the programs at the low and the medium were like how to get your license, how to get your social security card when you get back out, things like that.
Right.
But there were guys that were still looking at doing, another 10 piece, another 10 years.
Right.
So why are they taking a class to learn how to get their driver's license when, they got another 9.5 years? And then I go to the camp And they got all these young guys, and they're not programming them about how to get a driver's license,
Because it's
what
just
to do
housing.
when you get out,
It's
how to
housing.
how to go file for
Right.
Medicaid or whatever you're going to do. I took a class, Introduction to Scuba Diving.
Really?
Now, I sat next to my friend who, he's a black guy from Baltimore,
Uh-huh.
and he looked at me and he's like, "Can you believe I'm taking a scuba diving class? I don't even know how to swim." And he was like, "This is the most asinine thing." And it's so true. Like, the programs that are in there don't match the facility level.
Right, and the
When you're
population.
at a camp, you should be learning how to balance a checkbook,
Right.
how to get your driver's license, how to things like that.
Right.
But they're teaching people that have 10, 15 years left how to do that, and they're not teaching these guys that are like short to the door.
Right.
And it blew my mind. It blew my mind.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
you
so
weren't
if you
at
ever
that
want to go scuba
Lewisburg.
diving, I could help you out.
You weren't at that Lewisburg camp, were you?
No, I was at Ferriton,
Oh, okay.
which is in southern Jersey.
Right. Oh, okay. Wow.
I wanted to go to Otisville
Right.
because I live in Westchester County,
Right.
New York.
And it's quick
So
to
that
get
would have
to.
been like a half an hour ride for my family.
Right. No,
But
I get it.
the,
That's
the
funny though. A scuba diving class, really. That was
can you imagine?
That was killing time right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow. We have a podcast I'm doing with Anthony Payton, called Lock and Key. So I'm gonna be calling you for that because this is we're trying to pass a message out there and letting people know what it's like, and there is no other podcast with a CO and an inmate on there. They say don't call them inmate, call them inmates anymore. My bad. I don't know what to call them. I don't know. I'm like, look, I'm still shaking that off. You know what I mean? But
Listen, I'm the same way. I mean,
right.
I was an agent.
Uh-huh.
Now I became an inmate. I don't know what I am now. So
what are you doing?
You don't even want to know what my wife will call me.
So what are you doing? You do physical fitness and stuff, right?
Yeah. So what I'm doing right now is, I got certified or recertified as a personal trainer.
Okay.
And I'm working with some high-end clients, and I'm their personal trainer. And as I train them, I try to get the message out as far as like, what people are going through when they get incarcerated and how hard it is when they get out. And I'm getting these people, I'm kind of like sparking their minds, and they're going out on my behalf and the behalf of everyone that's been incarcerated.
Okay.
And they're starting to get involved in a lot of, fundraising, volunteer work. They're dealing with people that are putting together, documentaries, things like that.
Oh, okay.
I'm also on the board of Evolution Reentry Services, where we're trying to help people when they first get out. But it's funny, Mark, and you'll probably understand this. I'm kind of stuck in the middle. Like, I would like to be all in as far as helping the people that come home.
Right.
But because of my situation of being like a former special agent and then being like 919-12054,
right,
I get stuck in the middle. The people that were incarcerated sometimes will look at me as a cop, and the people that were on the other side that I'm looking to have help me help the others,
right,
look at me as an inmate.
right.
So it's like everybody looks at me like kind of out of the corner of their eye because like I was on both sides of the fence.
So I take it that you know better than anybody. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh, I do.
You know
I
better.
do.
You know better than anybody, especially in the Fed system. But here's what I'm gonna do. I want you to send me that information, how to contact you and everything. We're gonna I want to get this out there and let people know that you're out there to help them. You know,
Oh, that would be fantastic.
yeah,
That would be fantastic.
because this is
I'm currently also
uh-huh.
shopping around a book deal. I have a publicist who's helping me get, signed up with a publisher.
Yeah,
And the book it's not about like my FBI life because I
right.
was a counterintelligence officer,
Okay,
and pretty much everything that I did was classified.
right.
Not that matters with the current administration. I could probably just put it all out there now
You probably
and
could.
just get slapped on the wrist.
You know what my
But
biggest thing is? Not to cut you off, is
no, it's okay.
the Kennedy thing.
Oh, the
JFK.
Kennedy files.
Yeah, that's my thing, man. I've been fascinated with it. I wish we can continue, man. I'm gonna have to call you personally, and we gotta continue. But I gotta cut this short because we started talking. My bad.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna get you up here again because you have a lot to offer, and I appreciate you as always. But I'm gonna be in contact with you, and we're gonna get you on the Lock and Key podcast also, because we're
I would
trying
love to.
we're trying to set up some kind of tours and visit some cities and states, colleges and stuff like that. And but I want y'all to tune in next time. Bob, I want to thank you. This is for the people, by the people, about the people. You know, as always, thanks, Bob. I appreciate you. I'll call you later.
And thank you.
You're welcome.